Everyone knows about Gilgamesh, the perhaps most famous Mesopotamian king who went on a crazy adventure to find his friend Enkidu after he died. But what about Humbaba? Well, I'm glad you asked because this guy is one of the coolest monsters in all of mythology. So let's talk about him. This is Uncover the Hide. Join me as we explore ancient myths and legends from around the world. Today we are focusing on Humbaba, the monster from the Epic of Gilgamesh. Now, if you're interested in hearing more about Gilgamesh himself, I did actually make an entire video about him and the Epic of Gilgamesh already. You can go check that out, and you should definitely do that because it'll make this video 10 times more enjoyable for you. But just in case you didn't watch that or you just don't remember everything in it, here is a brief summary. Thousands of years ago in ancient Mesopotamia, there lived a great king named Gilgamesh, who was the king of Uruk. Now, Gilgamesh was a mighty warrior and was also two-thirds divine, which made him incredibly strong, brave, and handsome. However, he was also a bit of a jerk. He would brag a lot, claiming that no mortal could catch up to him in speed and that he was basically invincible. He also didn't really care about the feelings of others, and he treated them very poorly. This understandably made the people of Uruk complain to the gods about him. And in response, the gods created a man named Enkidu to be Gilgamesh's equal. The two met for the first time in the forest, where they fought against each other in an epic battle. They were evenly matched at first, but eventually they became friends after the battle. Then they went on an exciting journey together filled with many adventures, including slaying a giant, scary lion, defeating Humbaba, and stealing a magical plant. But then tragedy struck when Enkidu died. Sad and desperate to bring his friend back to life, Gilgamesh searched for a way to cheat death, but he wasn't successful. And so he learned the important lesson that even gods cannot escape their fate. Eventually, he came to accept the reality of death and realized that the only thing separating the living from the dead was a single day. He returned to Uruk a changed man, ruling over his people more fairly and wisely and becoming a legendary hero of the ancient world. Now, while the story of Gilgamesh is certainly amazing, today I want to focus specifically on Humbaba, the monster they defeated during their adventures. And to do this, we're going to be looking at the 11th tablet of the epic poem, which tells the story of their battle against him. Before we dive into the details of the fight though, I want to take some time to explain exactly who Humbaba is, where he came from, and why he's such an important character in the story. See, Humbaba isn't just some random monster that the heroes had to defeat. No, he is the guardian of the Cedar Forest and one of the most powerful demons in all of mythology. In fact, he is so strong that even the gods themselves were afraid of him. Now, in some versions of the story, it says that Humbaba was the son of a god named Anu, who was the king of the gods. His mother, however, was a demon, which made him half god and half demon. Other versions say that he was purely a demon, but either way, he was insanely powerful and dangerous. When the gods created the world, they gave Humbaba control over the Cedar Forest and charged him with protecting it at all costs. He was also given an army of demons to help him carry out his duties and do his bidding. Humbaba's job was to make sure that no one entered the forest without his permission, because it was said that anyone who dared to set foot in the cedars would be put to death. There was just something about the place that drove people insane. Now, as you might have guessed, this made him a pretty lonely guy because not only did he have to protect the forest from outsiders, but he also couldn't let anyone in. Can you imagine how boring that must have been? Like, you literally spend eternity alone in a forest with no one else to talk to. That would drive anyone insane. Anyway, Humbaba wasn't necessarily a bad guy. He was actually quite heroic and noble, but he just had a really unfortunate job. It says that he loved the Cedar Forest with all his heart and would do anything to protect it. He was also very wise and knowledgeable, having lived for thousands of years and seen countless things happen during his lifetime. He was even said to be immortal, which meant that he didn't have to worry about dying or anything like that. So yeah, Humbaba wasn't some evil villain who wanted to destroy the world or anything like that. He was actually quite the opposite, but unfortunately, he was destined to be killed by Gilgamesh and Enkidu. And let me tell you, their battle was one for the ages. The two heroes arrived at the Cedar Forest and told Humbaba that they were there to cut down some cedar trees. Now, he knew better than to trust them, but he allowed them to enter anyway, thinking that he could handle them if they caused any trouble, But boy, was he wrong. As soon as they stepped foot inside, Gilgamesh and Enkidu revealed their true intentions, which were to kill Humbaba and use his skin as a sail for their boat. They attacked him and his army of demons, and an epic battle ensued. It says that the fight lasted for hours, maybe even days, and it was incredibly brutal. But in the end, Gilgamesh and Enkidu came out on top, thanks to a little help from the gods. After Humbaba was slain, Gilgamesh cut off his head and held it high in the air as a trophy. He then used his skin as a sail for their boat, and they set off to return home. Now, as you might have guessed, there's a lot of symbolism going on here. See, the Cedar Forest was a sacred place, and Humbaba was a powerful demon, so killing him was no easy task. In fact, it was almost impossible, but Gilgamesh and Enkidu managed to do it, which showed just how strong and brave they were. It was also a very risky move, since Humbaba was a demigod, his father was a god, and gods were known to be very protective of their children. But Gilgamesh and Enkidu didn't care about that. They were determined to get what they wanted, and they did. So yeah, the battle between Gilgamesh and Humbaba was a very significant event in the Epic of Gilgamesh. It showed just how strong the heroes were, and it also showed the dangers of the Cedar Forest. It was a very intense and exciting part of the story, and it's definitely one of my favorites. But it wasn't all fun and games, because as I mentioned before, Humbaba wasn't some evil villain. He was actually a very good guy who just had a really tough job. And when Gilgamesh and Enkidu arrived at the Cedar Forest, they knew that he wouldn't let them in without a fight. So they basically forced their way in, which was very disrespectful. In addition to that, they also killed Humbaba's army of demons, which is kind of messed up if you think about it. I mean, these were Humbaba's friends and allies. He trusted them to protect him and the forest, and yet Gilgamesh and Enkidu just slaughtered them without hesitation. And then there's the whole thing with the head trophy, like, come on, guys, that's just rude. You wouldn't go to someone's house and then cut off their head and put it on your wall, right? Well, maybe some people do that, but most normal people wouldn't do that. It's just not done. It's not polite. You gotta show some respect to the dead, you know? Gilgamesh and Enkidu also stole Humbaba's skin, which was another very disrespectful thing to do. Like, imagine if someone stole your skin. Like, that's gotta hurt. And on top of that, they used it as a sail for their boat, which is like, come on, guys, that's just too much. Anyway, point being that while Gilgamesh and Enkidu were indeed very brave and strong for fighting and defeating Humbaba, they were also very disrespectful and rude. I mean, come on, guys, show some respect to the dead. Of course, it is worth noting that Humbaba was a demon and demons aren't exactly known for being very nice, but still, you gotta show some respect. But that's it for our look at Humbaba, the monster from the Epic of Gilgamesh. What did you guys think? Was he a cool character, or do you think he got the short end of the stick? Let me know your thoughts below. I personally thought he was a very interesting character, and I am glad that you guys gave him so much love in the last video. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit that like button if you did, and consider subscribing for more mythology videos in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.